This book is about how to anticipate problems before they happen and get ahead of them. Let's see what lessons we can tweeze out. I'll have timestamps below, so if you want to skip ahead, you can get to the parts you want to see. Please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel tremendously. And let's dig in. The 3 barriers are problem blindness, lack of ownership, and tunneling. Problem blindness is where you've come to accept a situation or a negative outcome as normal. The example is a high school in the Chicago area had a 52% graduation rate. It was about 20 years ago. And the further upstream they went, once they realized that 50% is not a good graduation rate, that's not what we want to go for. They dug and looked further and further into the problem and figured out that the freshmen needed to stay on track so they could build on that success and graduate. And so they treated that graduation rate as a problem rather than as normal. And then they realized it is a problem. Well, it was a problem because they don't want it the way it is, right? The second part is lack of ownership. If no one chooses to solve the problem, no one will solve the problem. You've got to choose to solve the problem. Unless someone leads, no one will lead. And just because, you may not be responsible for a problem, but maybe you can still fix it. Maybe take ownership of that problem and decide, hey, I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm going to go as far back to the root cause as I can and see what can be done and take ownership. And then the last one is tunneling. So this is all about scarcity. When there's scarcity of any resource, it creates tunneling. Say, take time, for example. In a tunnel, there is only forward. You can only see the next problem right in front of you. So if you've got a big project at work, you can't see it because you've got this problem right here. The tiny problems, the really urgent problems that may not be as important as a big project at work, those have to get done right now. Those have to get dealt with right now. So it's putting blinders on so that you can only react to a problem. You can't even see that project out there next week. That's not in your mental space because you have become reactive to the problem right in front of you. And the more that happens, the more it tends to happen. Because if you're constantly in reaction mode, you don't get proactive. You don't get any time to get proactive. So a way to combat that is to structure some slack and take a minute, maybe even make an appointment on your calendar for 5 minutes to say, okay, what is coming and what are things I can integrate into the slices of time in my day to prepare for those things. An example for me is if I get up late in the morning, I don't have time to get the laundry started before I need to get the kid out the door to school and get myself to work. But if I get up when I'm supposed to in the morning, I can go get that laundry started, and then it only takes up a fraction of my brain space. Whereas if I don't get it started in the morning, I've got to put that note as a reminder for when I get home to get it in, and then that makes it so that I'm not doing something else when I get home. I'm then going to put the laundry in, and then that laundry's got to be dealt with later, and it sets every single thing back. The root of the problem there? Stay out of bed. The 7 questions for upstream leaders. Question 1 is, how will you unite the right people? The way to do this is to get the key players, the people who have key roles in the outcome, gather together, surround the problem, and discuss in as much detail as you possibly can what exactly the problem is from everyone's perspective. Surround it and discuss in great detail. The closer you can get, the better. Number 2 is, how will you change the system? The key to this is to get the right people together, people who truly care about the issue and absolutely demand change. There's an example of a doctor who wanted better protection for his kid or someone's kid. As a doctor, so probably so it could have been someone else's kid in the car, and he absolutely insisted that car seats happen. And through a series of him caring and him gathering people and having them care, and a couple of people whose kids tragically died in accidents, having even more and more people care, getting a Katamari ball of people caring. Eventually, they actually got car seats required, but it started because of a very small group of very dedicated people. So don't underestimate the power of a small group of dedicated people to change the system and the world. That is all that ever does change the system and the world. Question number 3 is, where do you find the leverage points? What you want to do in this case is you want to get as close to the problem as you possibly can, because that will give you a micro view of every single thing that goes on which is causing a problem. The example he uses, it's genius here, is how elderly people who can't move very well, some elderly people can move quite well, but some of them can't, or anyone who doesn't move well, how they navigate an airport getting from one flight to another. And what they ended up doing was putting on a suit that simulated age. It simulated their joints not working as well. It was a very heavy suit, so it was harder to move in. It may even have blocked out a little bit of sensory input. And then they tried to get through this airport, and they discovered that down to the escalators not having quite enough space for someone who can't move very easily. It's hard to get onto an escalator if you only have 1 step instead of 2 steps or 3 steps worth of space to get on it. And there aren't enough places to sit down when you get tired, because everybody gets tired going through airports, right? So that's what they did, is they literally put themselves in the situation of the people having the issue of getting through the airport. And they discovered all these problems and all these friction points that are completely blind to most people, but they were able to solve these problems. They were able to make it easier. They added that step on the escalator. They added some benches. They did everything they could to ease the friction for this problem. They were quite successful at it as well. So get as close as you can. Put yourself in the position. Don't mentally do it. Physically do it if you possibly can. Get in there, so that you know exactly what that problem is, not that you think you know, so you know. How will you get early warning? Okay, Japan, okay. Question number 4 is, how will you get early warning of a problem? So Japan, they have a lot of earthquakes, and they have some bad ones. They have a warning system that gives 30 seconds of warning. It has sensors and data, it's a whole thing. But it gives 30 seconds of warning before an earthquake happens. You know what 30 seconds gives you? It lets you get out from under something heavy. It lets you get to shelter. It lets the buses in the city shut down. 30 seconds is huge when you know, oh my God, an earthquake is coming, and I now have 28 seconds to get ready as I can get in 28 seconds. It lets elevators stop so no one gets stuck. So many things happen because they get 30 seconds of warning. Another example is, there is a city that has they have 6.5 minute ambulance response time. And because they have a massive room that has screens all over the place showing the pinpointed by the minute location of every ambulance in their city area, it shows exactly, it has a halo around it of where it can get to in 10 minutes. So they just surround and they patrol. But it goes a step further than that, in that with this system, not only are they pinpointing the ambulances, they have a system that will tell them where and what time of day are most likely to get calls for ambulances or for first responders. So they figured out that in a nursing home, during meal times is when they get the most calls. Friday and Saturday nights are a little bit crazy. The 4th of July is a big time for ambulance calls in certain areas. Thanksgiving, not as many people call, but they know when people call, where they call from, and all of that. And so they deploy these ambulances proactively, and they have shaved, I believe, 1.5 minutes off of their response time compared to the national average. So national average was 8 minutes at the time, and their response time was 6.5. So 90 seconds could literally mean the difference of someone living or not. That is incredible. If we could put that into our everyday lives, that kind of anticipation and systems thinking, we could take over the world. The next question is, how will you know you're succeeding? The example he has is sidewalks in low versus high income areas in, I believe it's a neighborhoods outside of Chicago. So the high income neighborhoods had perfectly fine sidewalks. People just kind of complained about them a little more because they expected that if they called in and complained, the sidewalk would get fixed. And you know what happened? The sidewalk got fixed because they called in and complained about it. In the lower income neighborhoods, by contrast, nobody thought anyone would do anything about it even if they called. So the result is they didn't call, and the result was the sidewalk did not get fixed. So sometimes the squeaky wheel really does get the grease. And so they actually revamped their entire system for sidewalk maintenance, and they looked at where the most need-based sidewalks were rather than where the most calls came from. And that it radically reduced the amount of sidewalks. Like it reduced the money they needed to maintain the sidewalks, but it also reduced the number of calls and rose the entire, it increased the quality of the sidewalks for everyone because they looked at the need-based. They compared maps and looked at the need. The next question is, how will you avoid doing harm? So, beautiful example of this. There used to be there were too many cobras in India, and like snakes, and the government put like a $10 reward or a monetary reward on every cobra head that was that was turned into the government. So they were encouraging people to go out and hunt cobras to lower their population. But you know what happened? People started breeding cobras so they could turn them in and get money. So once the government found out that was happening, like, oh, this isn't what we wanted, so they shut down the program. And you know what happens when you are breeding an animal, creature that you no longer can turn in for money? What do you do then? What do the farmers do then? They release the cobras because they're worthless now. To turn in for a reward. You can't get a reward for them anymore. So they released them, which means now there's a whole lot more cobras than there ever were. So you've got to think through how to be proactive about these things such that you don't end up making more cobras in the wild than when you wanted fewer. And so you make a reward. Yeah, oops, didn't think that one through all the way. It's easy to do though. That particular complication is very easy. There are almost always going to be some kind of negative consequence. There's no free lunch, right? The last question is, who will pay for what does not happen? Excellent example of this is these people had an idea for a house maintenance team. It's kind of like a yard maintenance team. You pay someone to come mow your yard if you can, if you don't like mowing and you can afford that. Well, this was an entire house maintenance team. So you would register your house and they would look after. They'd proactively maintain, make sure your drains are working. Like one of my sinks in my house probably needs a little love right now. I'm not proactive enough at the moment to take care of that. They would come change your furnace filter. They would do whatever air conditioners need to be done, and they would just show up and they would just take care of any maintenance bit your house needed. And they would anticipate those problems based on the neighborhood or all these billions of other houses that are just like yours in their database, and they would maintain these records of this is when we did this is when we did this, so in this many months, this is the most likely thing that needs to happen to make sure everything keeps running smoothly. It's a little embarrassing when you forget to change your furnace filter, right? So then they're just going to come do that for you. They know, hey, that furnace filter needs to be changed a minimum of twice a year, so let's change it. Let's change it this month and this month. So who pays for that? Who even notices upstream efforts like that to keep those things moving? In this case, you pay the company and they maintain your house. But there are so many other things that you can't see the negative result, the negative result of a thing that doesn't happen because we're proactively attacking it. So it's another thing to consider. And finally, you upstream. You got to be impatient with your actions and very patient with your results. Real, true progress and systems change happens an inch and a yard at a time. So what can you do today and this week to affect change in a proactive and real way? Are you on track for today? Am I on track? Did I get up when I was supposed to get up? Did I get my workout in? Did I get myself ready for the day? Did I do all those things? How about this week? Did I get everything that I needed to do this week done? Did I maybe get ahead and look at next week? Did you get ahead? Did you do everything that was on your list today? I mean, maybe you haven't. Maybe you're watching this really early and you haven't had your day yet. But what can you get ahead of? What can you check? Like, keep your scoreboard, and what things can you get ahead of today and this week so that you're on track? Can you get close to that problem? Get as close as you can to anticipate a problem. For me, did I get up? Did I get my workout in? Did I start the laundry so that I can then have the evening to do my other work, instead of thinking, oh, okay, I didn't do my workout this morning, which means now I've got to fit that in, which means I have an hour and a half less of my day to do other things, to move forward. I create my own tunnel vision then. That's a problem. So if we check the scoreboard and are patient with our results, but we check it in real time, we can be prepared for the future and we can be ready to shape it. How are you going to shape the future? Thank you so much for watching. If you got anything at all out of this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. For more about systems and how they work, what they're for, and how to change them, check out this video here, and I'll see you there. Keep being amazing.